And boom, just like that, it's Thursday night, and you know what that means. It's party time with the Video Bros. I'm Bobby Munson, and the man beside me, the man with the angelic voice, he's Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes, how the hell you doing?
Munson, I'm doing awesome. Giving a shout out to all my wrestling people out there. How's everybody doing tonight?
Oh, I hope everybody is kicking ass, having a good old time. They're geared up. They're fired up because we got fun things to talk about, Papa Smokes. Cheers to that. The whiskey's in the cup. It's time to party with the Video Bros. And we will, I'm sure we will be joined here shortly by many fantastic friends of ours because we got quite the lengthy topic to talk about here tonight. And we've been talking about doing this for quite some time, Papa Smokes, and I'm very excited to get into it. We will do that right away. But while we're getting people in here, let's get some of this stuff out of the way. Like talking about our sponsors, I'm talking about the good friends over at Rogue Energy. You're going to want to go over to rogueenergy.com, or you can also check out that cool little QR code right in the corner of your screen, right beneath Papa Smokes over there. You scan that, baby. She's going to take you right over to rogueenergy.com, where you can use that promo code OLE Pods. That's OLEPODS for 10% off your order. What is Rogue Energy, you ask? Good question. It is the everyday alternative to your supermarket bought Red Bulls, Monster Energies, all those kind of things. Not saying we wouldn't take a sponsorship from them, but in the meantime and in between time, our good friends at Rogue Energy offer an alternative if you're looking to take care of your health, love your health, in fact, possibly. You're going to want to check out rogueenergy.com for a zero sugar, vegan friendly and, pack full of flavor. Oh, I'm tripping over my words here, Papa Smokes. I think I had this whole thing in mind. And then, of course, I've been sipping the suds, doing, a few things off screen beforehand. And now suddenly party time's kicking on in the old Munson brain.
It happens, man. You got your own kind of energy drink going on over there.
My whole life is an energy drink. You know that, Pop Smokes. You know me. And speaking of knowing me, that man down there knows me. He knows you too. It's our good friend Chris Parrish. Buddy, how you doing? Ooh. Hey, everybody. If you're checking this out, what you're going to want to do after this is head on over to go and check out Astrid Pizarro's channel. She has got Making an Impact, but this week she is going to be joined by none other than that man right there, Chris Parrish. They're going to be talking about Impact Wrestling tonight. I'm interested to see how this pans out, but at the same time, I'm kind of thinking if anybody's going to take that baby right off the rails quicker than it ever has happened on a Thursday night, I know who can make it happen, and it's that man right there. Stay tuned for what will be a very, very awesome episode of Making an Impact. Watch an Impact because I'm told homework needs to be done. Yes, take your notes. Your boss told you so. No, that's a good thing for anybody that's in the world of journalism. Not the word journalist, but podcasters on screen. Anytime you want to talk about things or do things, you do need to do some research. And it's funny, we were having this conversation before we went live on the air. In fact, Pop folks, this may have been one of the only times we had a topic where we didn't necessarily need to write down a bunch of notes because somebody went and did that for us. And that somebody is a Canadian professional wrestler himself. I don't know. This is going to get lost within the screen here a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I got mine here, Munson.
Let's check out Papa Smoke's copy of Uncontrolled Chaos. That is from Vance Nevada, Mr. Beefy himself, Vance Nevada, Uncontrolled Chaos. This thing is an encyclopedia, Papa Smokes. We know it. We've both gone through it. It is an encyclopedia of a good, strong chunk of history here in Canada. This is the closest we're going to get to a Canadian wrestling Bible right here, ever. And Vance Nevada did it. And, of course, like I've shown this on screen once before, but I'm busting out, but I could have personalized right there. Just awesome to get to meet Vance and to be able to share in the experience of learning about what is all in here. And we're going to be sharing that with you guys tonight, what we've learned more so about the Prairie provinces here in Canada. We're talking, Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and even British Columbia. We got lots to talk about. So again, buckle up because it's going to be a nice, good, interesting conversation. But yeah, Papa Smokes, before we kick off into this, anything you want to talk about first? Any news of the week or anything like that we should touch on?
Not really too much. Good busy week. Keep it busy with all my stuff, pumping the weights and all that, Munson. You know I never quit with that. It's the grind all the time, and I'm feeling good. I'm loving that summer's in here. That winter seemed pretty long. We had a lot of podcasts where we talked about the weather at the very beginning because it was wild and woolly and snowy and blowy and all kinds of stuff here. Man, it's turning into a very, very nice spring here. May is looking lovely around here. I'm just looking forward to getting outside, doing some working out, doing some eating and some barbecuing outside and all that kind of stuff. Just like all of us Canadians love to do. You got to enjoy the warm, sunny weather while you can.
There's nothing like nice cold beers in the backyard with some barbecue on a nice, beautiful weekend here in Saskatchewan. Of course, it has been beautiful already. It has been, damn near summer. In fact, most days, a lot summer type weather that we've been experiencing at the moment. It has been fantastic. Been able to get out, go for these nice long walks with the wife through the areas we like to go to, doing a little bit of jogging. There's this nice, beautiful hill in the park or whatever. So you go up and over a few times kind of thing. It really gets the muscles pumping, gets things flowing. I've got energy like I've never had before. That's what I tell you. It's real energy up in here because I've been, getting out there, getting re-energized. The sun is giving me all sorts of powers, and I'm a changed man, Papa Smokes.
Oh, I can hear it in your voice, Munson, and I admire where you live. You live even further out than the suburbs. There's even less people out where you live than there are in the city here. So you're doing it the smart way. You got lots of space and room to yourself and not a lot of people.
Yeah, you bet, man. And we got Chris Parrish notes. Fuck that, he says. I have a reputation, Bobby. Well, damn it, man. Just do it this one time. We ask you to do it this one time and go over there and just kill it on making an impact tonight. We believe in you, Chris Parrish. And then we got HCW Sports. Man, HCW Sports, thanks for coming in on a Thursday night and joining the party with us. This is Bobby Munson behind the mic. A lot of Maple talk. LOL. Great to see you, friend. It's great to see you as well, too. So happy you're here to join us on Ring Respect Radio. And there will be a lot of Maple talk, Papa's folks, because it's all about the Prairie provinces here tonight. Because, again, you and I, we're the guys behind the camera. We're the guys behind the commentary when it comes to Prairie Pro Wrestling. We've done a lot of Prairie Pro Wrestling watch-alongs here. We've shared in some of our experiences with High Impact Wrestling and Prairie Pro Wrestling here on Ring Respect Radio. And from there, we wanted to just kind of elaborate because, again, recently, just back, I believe this was at the October show, if I'm not mistaken, that we were joined by Mr. Beefy Goodness Vance Nevada at Prairie Pro Wrestling, where he dropped this book, The Uncontrolled Chaos, and we were able to get our hands on a copy. So yeah, we've talked all about this history and all the things that have built around it. And now we want to go and share that with everybody who's willing to sit down and enjoy it. And again, this is not anything that doesn't come straight out of here. This is a total plug for the book. Everything we are saying is 100% from Vance Nevada himself. We are just sharing in the experience with you guys here as we kind of review the Prairie provinces that mean so much to us. Because again, we might be rocking Saskatchewan with Prairie Pro Wrestling, Pop Smokes, but we have roots in other places. I was originally born in Alberta myself, and you're a Manitoba man.
That's correct, Munson. I'm looking forward to talking about some of the promotions that operated in Manitoba and Winnipeg, especially in the 80s and 90s when I was going to shows there.
Well, you know what? I think that maybe we should we'll save Manitoba for absolutely last then, because I think as much as we have our ties here in Saskatchewan, I just know that we're going to end on a high spot, getting you going and flowing about your time watching wrestling in good old Manitoba. So I think to really bring people up on that high as we kick this show into the highest gear it can go at the end of the night, that's where we're going to talk about Manitoba. I think maybe we'll just go right across the board then and possibly open this old Bible here and let's start talking about British Columbia. Or did you do notes on the British Columbia side, Pop Smokes, or should we just go straight to the Alberta side of things?
I talked a little. I'm interested in talking about BC a little bit because it has an important part in Western Canadian wrestling, especially due to its connections with big promotions in Portland and Northern California.
Very, very, very much so. And again, yeah, they are very, very much a part of the Western provinces here. So we will just get to that portion of our book here, Papa Smokes. Again, maybe you could start us off. Anything in particular that you want to kick off on the British Columbia side of this conversation?
Well, Nevada goes back to the very beginnings of when pro wrestling shows first started being exhibited in the various provinces and territories of Western Canada. But he goes back to the 1900s and 10s and 20s and stuff. But my area of expertise with BC wrestling is a little more modern than that. And you and I have talked before about my first memories of watching wrestling where I was a little kid. And when this is long before the internet or cable TV, you only had 3 channels or something. And Saturday night at 6 o'clock was All-Star Wrestling. And that was one of the shows that was on one of those 3 channels. And that was great for us because we all like to watch our wrestling at Saturday at 6. And that All-Star Wrestling was a promotion out of Vancouver run by Al Tomko, which you would have read about in there. He's one of the big players in Western Canadian wrestling. Also Winnipeg, but also Vancouver. And he had a great thing going out there. What were you going to ask?
I was just going to say, you've actually we've talked about Tomko a lot on the show as well, too. You've mentioned him quite a few times in many of the episodes of Ring Respect Retro and Radio as well. So, again, that's a name that does become very familiar. A lot of ones that in here that surprised me as we were going through as well, too. Maybe not so much like on the BC side. We will get to some of the other ones here, of course. But as we're kind of flipping through, I just wanted to see if any of these kind of like ring a bell for you. This would be this one actually ran for quite a while. And again, when he highlights one at the beginning, it seems to be one of the better known or like more established ones that had a long period of time. There's a lot of ones that you'll see ran for a couple of years and stuff like that are listed throughout here. And it's great to see that as well, too. But there's always the highlighted one, the very first one that he talks about, this one being International Championship Wrestling, the promoter being Tim Flowers, this one running from 1988 to 2019. This actually brings up Tomko, the fact that you say that. I'll just bring this little passage up here. When Vancouver promoter Al Tomko switched to a primarily women's format, there were several male wrestlers left in the lurch. Even Tim Flowers, who was approached by Tomko to stay on as a male feature on the cards, admits that he didn't believe in the direction of the product and elected to venture out on his own. So,
yeah, that's Diamond Timothy Flowers. He was a Canadian wrestler for a long, long time. You've heard me talk about Playboy Buddy Rose, that he was a big guy. Him and Tim Flowers were tag team partners for a long time. I would say by 88, Flowers would have been probably getting on in his years and retiring as a wrestler. So getting into the promotion game, very interesting.
Papa Smokes, this has got to be the coolest accolade I've seen someone throw your way on the show so far. HCW Sports say Papa Smokes' voice reminds me of a mellow Jesse Ventura. There is nothing wrong with that. Jesse Ventura is the golden voice right there. And we've got the angelic voice of Papa Smokes.
Massive compliment. Thank you very much.
So, going through this thing too, because, obviously for time, we could be here all damn night if we had through every single thing in the book. But yeah, again, I'll see if this comes through. There's actually a picture of Diamond Timothy Flowers, who you were just talking about, Papa Smokes, right there for you guys. So that is Diamond Timothy Flowers. Again, I like the fact that a lot of the pictures are accredited as well, too, throughout this book, which is something cool that we're going to talk about when we kind of get into our neck of the woods here. If you noticed who the photographer was on a lot of the pictures that were listed within this book. I love that they do that. I love the giving credit to the people who have these things, who have had this catalog of stuff for, someone like Vance to go and research and be able to bring this forward. I know at times we had thought of stuff like this and how we could probably contribute to something of this sort, but damn, I mean, it's all laid out here. It is beautifully put together. And like, we can sit here and sound like we're, experts in the field by just reading straight out of what it is literally the Canadian Bible when it comes to professional wrestling.
For sure. And that's one thing that's so great about this book is that it's not only the stories told and the history told and everything, but everything is annotated. All the sources are given, all the primary, secondary, tertiary historical sources that he uses are all footnoted, endnoted, annotated in the back. Like you say, all the pictures are credited. All the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. He did a nice job of this. I wonder if Vance Nevada was a college man at some point, because he certainly got his sources all lined up. It's a properly annotated work of history, and he's done a nice job there. It's a perfect encyclopedia, a starting point for if you want to learn more about Canadian professional wrestling.
Now, I want to know what you know about this, Papa Smokes, because that is a picture of Mr. Dan the Beast Severn wearing a CNWA t-shirt there. What can you touch on this particular topic? I know I can grab it right out of the book here, but what do you know about Dan the Beast Severn and his impact on the provinces here in Canada?
Not a whole lot, but I know that tons of American stars came up and made shots wherever they were going to get paid, wherever they could maybe do a little tour and do more than one shot. If it worked out financially to be viable for the wrestlers, they would do it for sure. What does it say specifically about Severn?
I'm actually just trying to find it here if I can. Again, I don't remember off the top of my head when I was reading it what it had actually said about him. So I'm just I'm just taking note of that. Here we go. I think I might have found it. The NW here. I'll read right out of here until we get to the part. The NWA membership saw ECCW secure a more visible status as wrestlers were exported to other affiliate franchises and made appearances on the NWA's annual reunion cards held in different U.S. cities each year. 2 NWA world champions, Dan the Beast Severn of the Ultimate Fighting Championship fame and Steve Corino, would appear under the ECCW banner. So that would be where their impact lies within the Canadian Prairies. And again, Steve Corino, another name that then also made an impact here on the Prairie provinces.
Absolutely. That's so cool to hear, because as you noticed studying this book and reading up about the different promotions, even back in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, the major champions of the major American companies still came up here and did shit. I've seen newspaper articles about Lou Thez defending the World Heavyweight Championship in Regina and Saskatoon. I've read about Pat O'Connor when he was heavyweight champ, still making the tour, doing the smaller cities in Canada and defending the biggest belt in the business at that time. It's amazing to think of it, and how cool that even as recent as Severn and Corino that they remembered that legacy and still came up and showed us a look at the big gold belt, or not the big gold belt, but the NWA globe, domed globe belt that we all love so much.
You bet. And look who just joined the party here, Papa Smokes. It's our good friend Brian Carter. Better late than never, gents. How's my wrestling peeps doing tonight? We are doing absolutely fantastic, Brian. Even more so now that you're here to kick it with us. The party is bringing a good old talk of Canadian wrestling, especially on the Western provinces here. We're talking about the province of British Columbia at the moment. That's where we've been going so far. King of old school. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, we're definitely kicking it old school on a lot of the stuff we're talking about here, because we have covered a lot of the Saskatchewan side when it comes to the at least the last 6-7 years anyway. We've kind of gotten people up to speed there. We'll touch on it a bit for sure too. Before we venture a province over, is there any other highlights in particular that we want to go over on BC here, Papa Smokes?
Yeah, just another personal tidbit that I was thrilled to find in this book in the British Columbia section. When I was talking about before being a young child and watching that All-Star Wrestling, Al Tomko's promotion, I'm talking about being age 4, 5, 6 kind of thing. Didn't really know what was up with the whole wrestling thing, but enjoyed watching it on TV. And they had an old announcer on that show, an old guy that must have been 75, maybe even 80, and his name was Ron Morier. I'll always remember this. He was the nicest old guy, not a commentator, but a stick man, sort of like a Gene Okerlund, standing holding the microphone for wrestlers beside the ring. And it was his birthday on one episode. He had to be in his mid 70s at least. So the baby faces came out and brought him a cake. And it was a cake that was designed, it looked like a ring. It had little ropes around it. And you could see Ron was touched by this, even almost shedding a little tear and everything. And I remember thinking as a little kid, wow, that's so nice that they did that. Is that ever nice? And then, of course, you know what happens with the cake on a wrestling show. You know what's going to happen with the cake on the wrestling show. It's still sitting there when the sheep herders come out for their interview. The wild Kiwi sheep herders, later to be known as the bushwhackers, of course. And they just started digging their hands into the cake and smushing it and eating it and spilling it all over the floor and then wiping it all over nice old Ron Morier, the announcer. I was flabbergasted as a kid. I couldn't believe that somebody would be so mean as to do something like that. Oh boy, the memories, man. That was when wrestling really got you.
Yeah, back in the day, definitely, and that was definitely back in the day, but a little bit before my time. But yeah, I mean,
that story is in that book. He tells that story in that book very briefly.
Nice. And again, we insist anybody who wants to learn more in depth, we're only going to be with you on the air here for very long. There is just so much information in here, and I recommend for a good read to understand our country better when it comes to the love and the passion for professional wrestling here in this country. Get this book. It is I think ranked one of the best selling wrestling books of all time or something. At least it's top in Amazon all over the place anyway. Brian Carter, Pop Smoke seemed like a nice kid. How did he find himself in a league with El Assassino later in life?
Fair
Good question. Kid, send it over.
Hey, man, life goes in some pretty twisting, turning ways. I started out nice, but I don't know where we've got at this point. But I'm looking out for number one always.
The Kiwi sheep herders ruined a young Papa Smokes and made him the cynical man you see before you on screen.
There might be some truth to that as well.
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder who's more evil, you or El Assassino. No, I don't wonder. It's El Assassino. Sorry, Pop Smokes.
You'll find out someday, Munson.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. But if we're going from BC, the next province we're heading on over to, right beside them there, is our good friends in Alberta, Canada. So if there's any province that people around the world have probably heard of when it comes to professional wrestling, it would be Alberta, Canada. Because again, immediately that's where the association is to the legendary Hart family. And so immediately people make that connection, albeit though that Stu Hart actually born in Saskatoon. So originally a Saskatchewan man himself, but eventually taking the family on over to the Alberta side. So, we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, the Hart family is the immediate association that most people are going to make with the province of Alberta.
Absolutely. They put their stamp on wrestling in that area. Everybody knows the famous Hart mansion. There used to be some kind of an orphanage or something. It's such a huge house. They had so many kids living there. And then, of course, the infamous dungeon in the basement where at any time you could hear the screams of agony coming out as Stu was stretching his students, trying to teach them how to do the holds properly and making sure they were tough enough to enter the business that he loved.
So, funny about that was I think it would have been the second to last or last class that went through the dungeon training before they closed down in Alberta there. That class in particular I was going to shows here locally in Saskatoon when they were doing the Stampede, the Stampede wrestling tours coming through the Prairie provinces here, and started talking with some of the boys and stuff like that. The opportunity was there to sign up, to go to the dungeon, pay the money, take the training, do all that kind of stuff. I wussed out. I totally wussed out. I mean, I thought about it. I mean, I made every excuse in the book not to go. Definitely looking back, I probably made the right choice in the end because I'd probably be a more crippled old cynical man than I already am. And I like doing this. I don't think I needed to be in there getting tossed around by people with actual physiques.
Yeah, that's fair. Not everyone can be the wrestler, but other people can participate in pumping up the wrestlers and getting some hype out there.
We found our way in sooner or later, Papa Smokes, that's for sure.
Yep.
But speaking of like guys in training, I just want to show that guy right there. That would be Massive Damage. And again, he might not be still listening in, but if our good friend Chris Parrish is still listening in, he's got a lot that he could tell you about Mr. Massive Damage, aka the one who trained our good friend Chris Parrish.
Yeah, and a well-known name across the prairies here and in Edmonton and Calgary for sure. But one of the things that struck me about reading this section too, that it is common to all Western Canadian and probably just a lot of wrestling in general, is the long distances that are required driving to different shows. And that's really like everything that the Hearts say. Every time you talk to Brett about the old Stampede days, he brings it up that it was grueling because every show that you went to that wasn't in your home city, it was a 3, 4, 5, 6 hour drive, 7-hour drive sometimes. More. And there's no time off in the winter. You're doing those drives when it's snowing, when the highways are covered in snow and the wind.
I don't know if that's on my side or Papa Smoke's side, but one of us has frozen up here on the stream. We will give it just 1 minute. Hopefully it's just a slight technical difficulty. And there he is. He's back with us. Every time you get on a roll now, Papa Smokes, it doesn't like you for some reason.
Once a show, guaranteed, eh? But yeah, that was one of the things that struck me, though, was just, again, ask some of our PPW stars here, too, that it's a long drive, man, that they make to come out here. And we really, really appreciate all the efforts that all the wrestlers go to entertain us.
You know who else we appreciate? We appreciate our boy right there, the third video, bro, Basser. How you doing, brother?
Yeah.
How's it going? But yeah, like, I mean, talking about the drives, when we get over to the Manitoba side, we get to start talking about the death tours. And that's going to be an interesting talk as well, too, that I wanted to save towards the end, because the death tours are a very interesting part of the history in Canadian wrestling here. Ambassador is doing great. Well, great, because we're glad you're here now, man. We're talking professional wrestling on the Prairie provinces, all courtesy of Uncontrolled Chaos from Vance, Nevada. I got to stress, everybody, if you don't own a copy, go own a copy. This is a great encyclopedia of professional wrestling, period. I know its focus is on Canadian wrestling, but if you love the history of professional wrestling in any way, shape, or form, I am not being paid to plug this thing. I just love it this much, and I think it deserves the attention. Go get a copy of Uncontrolled Chaos.
And yeah, and while we're sort of plugging it like that, it's not a dusty old book of history. There is a lot of old history in it, but to current day fans, you will recognize a lot of the names in this, and there are a lot of names of stars that are currently active now in all the areas of the Western Canada. So some of your favorites are in this book. It's history as it's still being made now.
You might even hear mention of an upstart company known as Prairie Pro Wrestling mentioned within the pages of this book as well, too. I thought that was, I mean, that popped me, of course, because when you get in there and he starts, hey, there it is. Like, we just made it. We just made it. We're still pretty new at the time that this was being put together, but we got in there as well, too. From Kyle, Saskatchewan, so damn insane. You know what? I remember that, dude. I really do, with the Stampede tours. We were talking about those. I go to the ones here in Saskatoon. You'd have, your top guys like Principal Richard Pound in there. Wavell Star was killing it over on the scene and stuff like that too. Just a lot of cool guys. Rob Roy Scott, guys like that. So Damn Insane, like Bastards pointing out there. Those were some fun-ass shows at the time.
For sure. And talking about those long drives and all that too, one of those destinations was, of course, Saskatoon for the Stampede guys from Calgary. And when I'm having a couple of beers in the bar or whatever, and I have some guys that I know, some old timers that are older than me, and if we ever talk about sports and stuff, I will ask the guys about wrestling, and they all say, oh, hell yeah, we used to go to Stampede Wrestling, downtown Saskatoon, in the old arena building. That's before my time here, but I've seen pictures arena, of it. Yeah. And they all mention the Hearts, Muckham Singh, Archie the Stomper, the Mongolian Stomper. And
Archie's awesome.
Oh, so awesome. What a fearsome heel. And then all the other favorites that came through there from the Cuban Assassin and Dave Rule on down. And it's interesting because it was popular. And even those guys, a lot of those guys were never really wrestling fans. But when it was in town here for the night, they're going down to the arena, getting the $5 ticket, getting the $7-bucker, and sitting in there and blowing off some steam, yelling at the heels.
Yeah. And people still love doing that today. And that's why we see the great crowds we do at the Prairie Pro Wrestling shows. The PPW Nation wants to blow off steam, and they do it quite well when they're out there with those guys. I want to touch on, because we're in the Alberta side, the CNWA here, Papa Smokes, because this was kind of an alliance that was created amongst a bunch of different promotions across Canada, the Canadian National Wrestling Alliance. I know that we got a little bit of taste of that history brought forth by Chris Parrish there on Busting Out on Sunday when Brian brought up the question about the championship that is behind Parrish, that CNWA championship that he's got there, which he was actually the final champion that was crowned in the CNWA. That's why he still has that belt hanging in his place there, kind of thing. He's got a piece of Canadian history on screen for you guys each and every week. I mean, and Chris Parrish is part of that history too in Alberta. Again, he has been not only putting on great matches, but also, going out and helping elevate other people throughout his career, unselfishly helping out other people as he went along and putting them over and stuff like that. And you seeing that shine through in guys that, like even his former tag partner, Son of Irish, who, has that kind of same, Parrish spirit, which just makes him an awesome person and a great person that you want to root for, and just, a great future ahead of him.
For sure. And a lot of those smaller independent companies out here in Western Canada and other places in Canada and other places in the US as well. But by the end of the 80s and certainly by the early 90s, the big companies were starting to bleed the indies dry. So a lot of them started banding together into alliances kind of thing. And I have the feeling that one in Alberta was something like that, because I know that when some of the major companies would come through some of these Canadian cities, the promoters would say, well, if you go and work for the big company, you aren't going to work for me, because they were trying to dig their heels in against all the money and the momentum they were losing by Vince and his big show coming through, or WCW, whatever kind of national shows were coming through, because they were stealing all the viewers on cable TV. And some of those alliances might have prolonged the inevitable a little bit, but look what happened. The indie companies can't really be territories anymore. They can only make seasonal money in their own home city, which is kind of what we do here, except that we never really hardly get big shows here from big companies. So we're lucky that way.
Yeah, well, I agree. It's never been known as a big wrestling territory or anything like that. We've never drawn record numbers. In fact, any show I've ever gone to on a larger level here, like even whether it be house shows or even when Brett and Ric Flair, there was probably more people at that than I remember being at just about any show that has ever been run by the WWE in Saskatoon before. We just don't get that kind of draw here overall in this province, even when the product's hot. We get it for niche amounts. So that's why PPW does so well, because those fans, those diehard fans that want to go to every wrestling show out there, they'll come out all the time and they're excited about it. And that's what I love about it, because I love hanging out with people that are like-minded like us. They want to have a good time. They want to enjoy wrestling. Speaking of CNWA, one of the other people that graced the CNWA, and a really, really good friend of Chris Parrish, and somebody we both know, has been a guest on our show here, Papa Smokes. Look at that young, dashing young Bobby Sharp right there. What a handsome devil he is. But what a great individual too. And prior to the hip replacement that he had to have done and everything like that, he was really on a roll, like almost to the point where we were starting to think that he was probably going to get snagged up by one of the bigger companies. It was very possible for Bobby Sharp. But since coming back, man, this guy looks better than ever. Like when he was on our show, he talked about just how he's changed his diet, his fitness levels, and everything like that. He's become a leaner, sharper, more fit Bobby Sharp. And I know what he was capable of before. Damn, what he's capable of now can only just be scary levels of good.
Bobby Sharp's a wrestler all the way. Anytime I've ever talked to him, he doesn't want to talk about anything but wrestling. It's wrestling or working out and diet. That's all he cares about. That's how you know the guy's got the dedication to push forward and to make something out of himself in the wrestling business.
Yeah, and I can't believe I forgot to put this comment up before, but I'm going to get to it now, because Brian Carter, you're trying to stir the pot with Alex Kane. I know you are, and I know you're going to come in on the 21st and stir the pot, because you've already made that very clear. But Brian Carter saying, I think he's going to have to sacrifice that belt. This is in reference to Parrish. If Alex Kane sees it when he is on the Sunday show. I don't doubt that. Kane's a prize fighter, that's for sure. That's more complimentary than what you were smack talking about Kane there on Sunday, my friend. I heard a lot of Kane's not fit enough to carry the title there, and you were gonna actually bring that comment to him on the 21st. Man, you got to have balls of steel, my friend, if you're willing to talk smack like that to Alex Kane.
Oh, man, just make sure Mr. Thomas doesn't hear that, because we don't need him up here.
No, Mocha Traps. He'd be very angry, man, if he finds out about that stuff. So we'll keep it on the down low. But Brian, I dare you to bring it, because guess what? Parrish and I, we don't mind if the show goes off the rails. If Alex Kane wants to cut a promo on your ass on our show, we are going to let him do what Alex Kane does best and talk shit like he talks shit on TV, if not better. And he's still coming for Kane. I love it. It's going to be a fun day. That's right, everybody. If you're hearing this, then you're going to want to tune in on Sunday, May the 21st at 12:15 p.m. Eastern time with myself and Chris Parrish, as we're being joined by the leader of the Beaumont Fight Club. I'm getting to hang out with him one more time, Papa Smokes. It's Alex Kane. It's going to be a fun time.
Oh, you're so lucky. I love it.
We'll get him back here on Ring Respect yet too, Papa Smokes. It'd be really cool to get him back with the belt when he wins it, Brian. But we'll cross that road when we get there. I want to go over, we talked a little bit about Stampede Wrestling. We've talked a lot about Stampede Wrestling when you go listen to some of our shows where we've talked about the Hart family, especially the one where we talked about families in professional wrestling. A lot of talk about Stampede, so not going to go on about Stampede for too long. But again, a lot of the Canadian names that you guys know are well known out of Canada. Not everyone, but a ton of them came out of the Calgary scene and everything like that. So let's talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, not only the people that came out of that scene, because every city has their own scene and their homegrown talent, but Stu Hart was a star in New York and the big cities in the U.S. during his wrestling career, and people knew that he had a promotion with some integrity going on up in Calgary. So he attracted a lot of great talent from the States, including the Jake the Snake Roberts and the Dr. D. David Schultz and the Bad News Allens and all those the top flight contenders that came through, including Billington and Davey Boy Smith, coming all the way over from England to Calgary to be part of this too. So not only the homegrown scene, but they attracted so much excellent talent.
Yeah, they really did. Next, I wanted to move on over to another company that I'm sure you've got a little bit of familiarity with, Papa Smokes, because I know that the talent very heavily was shared between this Alberta promotion and High Impact Wrestling that we were working for at the time. Talking about the Prairie Wrestling Alliance, unfortunately, it seems like they have not done anything since the shutdown during the pandemic times. That's very unfortunate because they definitely had a great thing going on. I believe everybody really enjoyed their time over there. And there was the good working relationship. It seemed like they would do a Friday show, Saskatoon would have a Saturday show, and kind of the talent would then get to travel back and forth, allowing them to keep busy. Everybody's working kind of thing, and everybody gets to see their favorite people. Doesn't matter if they're on the Alberta side or the Saskatchewan side.
No, that's good that you brought them up too, because that was an excellent working relationship between the cities of Edmonton and Saskatoon, and between the two promotions. That was when we were working for High Impact Wrestling, and they had a good thing going on over there in PWA, because if you ever talk to the wrestlers, I'm always interested in that sort of thing, and I talked to a couple of the wrestlers about what's it like working there, what are the payouts like, all that kind of stuff, just for my own curiosity and knowledge, and everybody spoke highly of it. Where it sometimes was a little bit unorganized in the in-ring stuff, it was run very tightly as a business, and they had everything lined up, everything matched up. There was no monkey business with anything, and run very, very strictly, and like a German train station, everything on time and everything perfect. So I always thought that must be a pretty good company for those reasons.
Yeah, and again, that shared talent that came back and forth, it meant that we got to, experience meeting and seeing a lot of great talent that was coming out of the Alberta scene. We've continued to do that since the Prairie Pro Wrestling, and being, introduced to very new talents, as well as some talents that had just not been here since the time that we started working there. So it's been a great build for sure. Monster Pro Wrestling is another one. This one running from 2002 to, it says 2021 in here. I didn't know that they had actually shut down, but I know if we were to talk to somebody like Chris Parrish, he could probably shed some light on that. But I know that was a company where I believe people like Mitch Clark got his start in and stuff like that too. I believe that he was champion over there. I know Chris Parrish worked for them as well too at some points. So yeah, there was them. You've got RCW, which is still, I pretty sure still operating today, even though it says 2021 here. Might just be that's when this book, as he was finalizing it, but I would still say RCW still in the mix there in the Alberta scene. And then also I wanted to talk about the other PPW for a minute too, because this joke has gone back and forth quite a bit between myself and Parrish, but there is Pure Power Wrestling out in Lethbridge, Alberta, and I hear nothing but awesome things about Pure Power Wrestling. They've been in operation for a fair amount of time. Everybody seems to absolutely love working over there. So again, it must just be the call letters, I'm thinking, Papa Smokes, because when you got PPW behind you, it's some sort of magical power that draws the people in, makes them happy, and makes them want to work for you. And they're just rocking and rolling over there on the Alberta scene.
Yeah, and the letters PPW just make such a good chant too, right? We hear it every month on a Saturday night. PPW works out perfectly.
It really does. It's always a good time. But yeah, a big shout out to Pure Power Wrestling. And again, if you guys are also looking for something more modern as well too, that you can find online, where we worked for a little while there over at Love Wrestling. They do the LPW shows once a month, last Friday of the month. They're available on Twitch, also on their YouTube channel. And El Asesino made his debut there recently, folks. And I fear for the people of Alberta now that they've allowed El Asesino back over the border.
Yeah, well, he used to do shows with that PWA sometimes too, and he got quite a reputation as a very nasty wrestler, starting to go in Edmonton there, and it was nice to see him back there. I don't think Love Wrestling quite knew what they were in for when they invited him.
Okay. Besser, you bring it up a very, very funny comment that came about during a stream one night there, my friend. Good little pop from us, that's for sure on that one. But yes, less talk and more wrestling. That's what the people demand. I just want to go through a few of the names that are highlighted here in Vance Nevada's book here for the Alberta scene. Of course, we showed the picture of Massive Damage, but top 25 profile wrestlers of the era in this region is what he's got listed here. And I'm going to go from 25 down to number 1. And of course, some of them we're gonna know here, Pop Smokes. 25, he's got Kyle Sebastian. There's a new face around the scene, but has been kicking some serious ass. Was in a great tag team there, but has gone into being a solo wrestler now too. This guy's someone who's going straight to the top. He's young, full of energy. I would love to see him grace a PPW ring sometime.
Sure, I haven't watched any of his stuff yet. I recognize his name. I would welcome him for a match for sure.
And it doesn't say Hot Shot, but isn't it Hot Shot Johnny Devine is the name, if I'm not mistaken?
I thought it was Hot Shot Danny Duggan.
Oh, there's Danny Duggan. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'm thinking wrong here. But number 24 is Johnny Devine. Not as familiar with Johnny Devine myself. I've heard the name, but not really too familiar.
Yeah, same.
But 23, we know this dude, Brandon Van Danielson, BVD.
Oh, yeah.
There's a brawler and a brute if I ever saw one. Man, it's been a while since we've seen that dude.
Yeah, I miss him. I was getting used to him doing regular matches in town here with Michael Richard Blaze by his side. What a tag team and what a worker. That guy was awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely loved him. Absolute devastating wrestler. 22, Davey Boy Smith Jr. again, because right out of the Calgary area, born and raised, and that's where he got his start as well too. Going to try to go through these a little quicker. 21, we got Zach Mercury. 20, of course, TJ Wilson. People should know TJ Wilson very well. 19, Barricade. We got 18 was Apocalypse. 17, Dynamite Dan. 16, Vince Austin. 15, Duke Durango. 14, Markey, or the original Markey, I believe that he goes by. Yeah. 13, we got Sydney Steele. 12, we've got Steve Wild. 11, you're never going to guess this one. Chris Parrish is right there on the page. Number 10 is Kato. Number 9, Jesse Youngblood. There's a name that you'll recognize for sure, folks. Yeah. And number 8, we got Slammer Silva is on the list right there.
I missed him too.
Yeah. We got Ravenous Randy at number 7. We got the Lion Warrior, Bobby Sharp at number 6. Of course, God's gift to professional wrestling is at number 5. Michael Richard Blaze. Steven Styles at number 4. Steve Rivers at number 3. Heavy Metal number 2. And number 1 is Massive Damage in this list here that they've got. Again, a lot of big names that come out of that area that have done great things for professional wrestling in the Alberta scene. And just a rich history that's over there, Pop Smokes.
For sure. And, I mean, Canada as a nation is much more heavily populated down in the east, in the areas of Toronto and Montreal, both those being massive wrestling cities. But Calgary, Alberta is one of the real hot spots in Canada for wrestling. And I would say foremost in a lot of fans' minds that aren't from Canada as one of the truly the main city in Canadian wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. So, and we got Chris Parrish coming in. Reminding people that if you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up here on YouTube. Yes, and also give us a subscribe if you haven't done so. I put that challenge out earlier. I didn't end up having to take any shots. Of course, I've been drinking some whiskey in the old coffee mug there, so it doesn't matter. But again, same challenge next week. It starts on a Thursday morning. It ends Thursday as we get here. You bring me at least 2 subs on YouTube, and I'll give you a shot of something, at least probably JD, some sort of whiskey right here on the show as we party it up on a Thursday night. I know we're talking some history of Canadian wrestling here tonight, but it's still a party, Pop Smokes, because we're drinking,
of course,
we're puffing, we're having fun like video bros always do. It's always a party. It doesn't matter what the topic is.
Hey, we got the party every Thursday night, and if you like the wrestling, we're going to be discussing it. You guys jump in the chat and discuss it with us.
Yeah, we love an active chat. So again, if you have any questions or any comments you want read on screen, get them in there. Remember, be respectful on those comments because we will only play the good ones. And you know our limits. We know we bend the rules a little bit, just a touch. But you know our limits.
Munson.
No, you're a goddamn saint there, Pop Smokes. I've always known that. But I just want to show this as we head on over to the good old province of Saskatchewan. There's a dapper young man, if I ever saw one. Or no, sorry, I correct myself, a dapper young individual, because we are talking about the individual Mike McSugar right there on the Saskatchewan side as we roll over into Saskatchewan. Man, Mike McSugar, this is someone we have had the opportunity to call matches for, be there live in person every single time. Just Mike McSugar. No, aside from everything that happens around Mike McSugar, we'll leave it there. The wrestling is good, really good. Mike McSugar is a great technician in that ring, a great psychologist in that ring, getting under the skin of the opponents that he takes on. Man, Mike McSugar has been just awesome every single time he graces a ring, and it's done so well in Prairie Pro Wrestling as well too.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you were to look for the perfect, just wrestling worker for in Saskatchewan, he would be so high on the list because he was a bodybuilder for a while there. He's got that good, strong physique, and then he's been a wrestler for a long time too. Mike McSugar gets it. He's very good at his in-ring, but he knows it's not just that. So look at what he's developed for the Mike McSugar presentation that we see at each of the shows. It's captivating, and the fans love it. I can never decide who loves it more, the fans that see him for the first time or the fans that have seen it a million times. It doesn't seem to matter. He entertains the fans. He works them. He's got such charisma and like a confidence too, that he knows what he does is going to go over big time, and he's great at it.
Oh, just awesome. And that's what started the whole Mike McSugar Wiener Eaters Club, where the people are going around and taking pictures of groups of them, stuffing their faces with hot dogs at all the shows here in Saskatchewan. And it became a massive thing. Like, even if McSugar's not at the show, he's there in spirit because the Wiener Eaters Club is out in full force every single show.
Yeah, talk about leaving a legacy. And how that joke started, I don't know, but everybody started taking pictures with the wieners in their mouth and tagging Mike McSugar in it, and then it just became a thing. And that's one of those things we like at the intermission. Before the last two matches, everybody goes outside to have a smoke or whatever they do, and the hot dogs come out and the pictures get taken, and some of the wrestlers come out. They know that everybody's jovial and having a good time with hot dogs. All kinds of selfies being taken. It's awesome. That's where I meet so many fans and get to interact with the other wrestling people of Saskatchewan.
Well, we got something that's come up here, Bob Smokes. Now, Brian Carter asking, when are we going to show a Parish match? And Parish saying, yeah, Bobby. Well, here's the deal. Okay, I would love to. I'd love to do a watch along of a Parish match, especially if we could have Parish on the show with us when we do that to kind of talk about the background around the match. So let's set that up. But first, Parish, please, I don't want to step on any toes. So again, if you could reach out to, because again, the footage is not mine. It doesn't belong to our company at all. So I would like to receive permission from whichever promoter it is that we could show a match of, without them being upset that we're showing a match here to people online. So if you could clear that with one of the awesome promoters there on the Alberta side, Parish, and we can do a watch along of one of your matches or a couple of your matches there on the show, that would be awesome to have you on here. And then Brian, you would get to do that. Again, Brian, if you do want to watch a Parish match, just type Chris Parish Wrestler, anything of that sort onto YouTube. You'll find some on there, and they're fantastic. He does a great job.
Watch some Mike McSugar while you're at it. If you haven't seen him at the last few PPW shows, you're going to want to see Mike McSugar too.
He probably saw my out of camera bad white balanced Mike McSugar with the cup we will not speak of incident there on the channel.
Yeah, that's recent enough that B. Carter might have seen that one.
Now, Papa Smokes, I got to know, before we dig into Saskatchewan, when does Papa Smokes Meet Saskatchewan story begin? When did you officially move to the Saskatchewan side?
I guess sometime in the 90s, in the mid to late 90s, I moved out here and did some work at University of Saskatchewan. So when I first came here, I I don't think I went to very many shows because I didn't know what the scene was going on. This is also in the very, very early days of the internet. There wasn't social media that I could look this stuff up on. I know I saw some posters on telephone poles downtown kind of thing for POW, and I went to a couple of those shows in the early 2000s. So I did see Principal Pound. I saw a very young El Assassino. I also saw Crash Crimson. And one of the POW shows I went to, the main event was the Honky Tonk Man versus Principal Pound.
Oh wow, that would have been something else. Fantastic. And again, Crash Crimson, you mentioned that name. That again is one of the members of the PPW management who has had to come out there and lay down the law a few times when some of the boys are getting out of hand. I don't know where he's been lately. There, El Assassino's been on a tear. I think he's gonna have to step in and put his foot down with El Assassino here sooner rather than later before somebody ends up hospitalized on the PPW side.
Well, for sure, and we just recently called a match that El Assassino interfered in at the very end and did some damage to Colton Kelly. It was really quite shocking, but you'll see that this Saturday on YouTube, on the PPW YouTube channel.
You sure will. Hardcore Wrestling was one of the promotions that was here in Saskatchewan. That one ran from 96 to 97, not a very long time. One thing I did want to mention too, as we head on over, and you'll see here a nice photo taken from High Impact Wrestling. So this would have been the company where Papa Smokes and I got our start doing commentary, me on the filming side and putting the shows together. I also see a familiar face there, Michael Allen, Richard Clark, who you've seen over at Prairie Pro Wrestling before too. So some familiar things, but I also want to give a shout out to the photography because many photos within this encyclopedia of Canadian professional wrestling belong to Rachel. Sorry if I do the name wrong. Rachel Paulus Ling. And she is a wonderful lady who has been taking photography of professional wrestling for quite a long time now. She has got probably one of the biggest encyclopedias of pictures from professional wrestling over the years. And damn, she does a great job. Her photos are fantastic. She has documented everything that she has ever been a part of.
Yeah, you couldn't say it better myself, Munson. And I've talked to Rachel a few times and just out of curiosity asked some questions about it. And she's been going to the shows. She used to live in Calgary and she's been going to Stampede and other shows since she was a teenager. She's a lady in her 60s now, and she's got pictures from all that time. Some of it just as a fan, but getting up close and getting in the back aisles of the arena and stuff and getting some backstage pictures. Her stuff is amazing, and I've had the thrill to see some of it, and she's released little bits and pieces of it here and there, but she's also told me she's got a huge collection that she needs to go through at some point and maybe get some names and dates and some kind of order to it. It's a treasure trove of Canadian wrestling photography.
Yeah, it really is. And I brought that up because the picture there is of Thrillin' Dylan dropping the elbow down to Jeff Tyler. Great photo that she captured as the action's happening. That coming from High Impact Wrestling, which was eventually divided into two. It became Regina and Saskatoon. High Impact Wrestling Saskatoon. We had Wildside Wrestling, which was a subsidiary of HIW running here in Saskatoon, where we were doing our programming for. HIW did not start with King Cash, though. That's who we would have known as the promoter, the booker at the time. Before that, it was actually a guy named Charles Pichette that owned HIW before eventually selling it to King Cash. Yeah, there you go, Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck. Yeah.
Yes, and he ran that for a long time, too, beforehand, didn't he?
Yeah, for a long time. And that I know the story in its skeletal form, and I'm not going to go into people's dirty laundry or anything like that, but just it's a business story, and somebody wasn't making money and somebody was pissed off, and it's nothing new. It's nothing that you haven't heard before. I'm not going to get into it at this point, but just as businesses will change hands, that's what happened. And King Cash injected some life into a promotion that needed a boost at that time, and he did pretty good for 20 years. I think was it not to the 20-year anniversary of High Impact Wrestling, not too long before they closed their doors. So he did good for a long time, and then once again the fans needed and wanted a change.
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, I mean, eventually he closed that chapter. I believe that Danny Duggan, who you mentioned, the CWE, ended up picking up what was left of HIW, absorbing their championships, and any of the history they got there, any of the catalog they got there is now within the hands of Danny Duggan and the CWE. But again, we had a lot of great opportunity there. We were brought in and given this,
Hell yeah.
great opportunity to be able to be commentators with zero experience, none. We had no idea what we were doing from day one. We were given the opportunity to do this and build on it, and we've grown from it, of course. So, I mean, I got to give kudos to the people who accepted us in at the time and allowed us to, hone our craft and get to where we are today.
For sure. And I don't think High Impact Wrestling was all that experienced with getting a internet-based TV show going, nor were we experienced with it either. But I think that was just the sort of magic that it took, is like, well, could it be a thing? Could we get it up and going? We had Bobby Munson with a lot of knowledge on how to produce stuff like that, and then some wrestling knowledge on the other side coming together and creating a chemistry for working together, you and I becoming friends and all that stuff. And man, it worked out beautifully. It might not have, but it certainly did, and I'm so glad about that.
Hey, it worked out, and that was the important thing. We were able to get that out. That stuff is still available on YouTube. You can check out Wildside TV through the HIW YouTube channel as well, too. So, I mean, it's not perfect.
Listen to that
it's not perfect by any means. I agree to that and everything, but just cancel that part out and appreciate the great Canadian wrestling we had there, because there was some killer matchups that occurred during our time there, and it was fantastic to be able to do that and learn from it and grow from it as well, too, because that's one thing we do all the time. We learn, we grow, we mature, we get better at what we do, and that's why we can, present the product that we do today. I'm looking back on how this show started, even Ring Respect Radio, and the fact that it just used to be a crappy photo that I put on YouTube with my voice talking a bunch of stuff that I really didn't know. I mean, I had no experience at the time. I was just a fan coming into it, talking shit, and eventually I learned more, grew more, and I'm still learning every damn day of my life, Papa Smokes.
Yeah, same. Well, that was back when it was Rock and Rob's Wrestling Reviews.
Rob's Rock and Wrestling, yeah.
Rock and Wrestling, yeah, I remember that. And then I was also thinking of the old days. I remember the first episode of Ring Respect Radio I was ever on, because that's when we first started doing commentary, and you said, well, I'm trying to get a podcast going. Would you be a guest on it? Okay, yeah, let's do that. We had a nice 45-minute conversation. That was my first podcast appearance ever. Now, I'm not condoning the current fans to go back and listen to that. I've never listened to it in the years since then. I know I did once or twice back then, but yeah, that was when we were still just little chickies, and we were just little babies in the business at that time.
We really were just getting our feet wet at the time there, and now we just read out of books online here, and people want to listen. So I love it. Absolutely love that you guys want to share your Thursday nights with us and just talk wrestling. It's a good time. And now, as Bastard's saying, now we've got the Munson-tron. That Munson-tron. That's a popular ass term now. I'm loving it. I can't wait for the next Munson-tron. And I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to let you know right now that even though we don't have a name just yet, that Saturday, June the 17th, live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, Prairie Pro Wrestling presents To Be Announced. That's how much I can give you so far.
Yeah, the title needs a little work for sure. We'll get something with some zazz.
I'll let the experts take care of titling the show and making it all happen. Ambassador, you have no choice but to be there moving forward, my friend, because as you know, we keep calling you a third member of the Video Bros. You're going to be starting your apprenticeship at that show, my man. I'm going to be teaching you how to hold those cameras, how to make those wrestlers look good, where to hold it, how to focus it, what you got to do. It's a thankless job sometimes, my man, but I'll thank you for it because you know what? It means the world to me that you and Papa Smoke are willing to do this and go on this crazy ass journey with me to put these shows together and make it possible. So I thank you. I thank you, Papa Smokes. And I thank people who tune into it when I see numbers and we're not blowing people's minds, but some of those matches hit well. They really do some good numbers there on the Prairie Pro Wrestling channel. And we only hope for those to continue to go up. The subscriptions have been going up. They're on the rise. We're seeing it happen, Pop Smoke, slowly but surely. All the work we're putting in is starting to pay off bit by bit.
And you could see the reach of PPW is starting to spread throughout the internet, just in the way that people we don't know and people not from Saskatchewan are reaching out to us, saying hi, saying they watched some matches, saying they enjoyed some stuff, saying they wish they could come to matches. And that the roots are getting out there amongst the wrestling fans. It's really remarkable to see.
Well, that gives me an opportunity to plug something else because that's a funny story. We had a wrestler that is ranked 485 on the top 500 PWI singles wrestlers at the moment. 2 years in the business, a young up-and-comer, and he's recently started doing some work in spots with the Beaumaye Fight Club. I'm talking about a young man named Bougie who reached out, wondering where he could talk to the right people about possibly getting booked in Prairie Pro Wrestling. It doesn't mean that he is. We get these all the time. Scheduling and all that kind of stuff doesn't always line up. So this is not saying Bougie's on his way to Prairie Pro Wrestling, but where he is on his way to is this Sunday. Join myself and Chris Parrish on Bustin' Out. We're going to be talking to Bougie, hanging out, talking the week of professional wrestling, talking to him about his journey in professional wrestling so far and everything. It's going to be a fun time. Looking forward to meeting this young man, and I think he's going to be an up-and-comer and that we're going to see on the rise here soon, Papa Smokes.
Very exciting. Anytime there's some members of the Beaumaye Fight Club kicking around our local establishment, that's exciting news to me.
Yeah, Ole loves that Beaumaye. Look at that. I like that line. I'm like,
wow.
109. I better write that time down because we're going to be clipping that scene right there out of this one because we like our clips and our shorts and everything like that. That's why our YouTube channel is now rocking and rolling with daily videos. Go check it out. Subscribe to our local establishment on YouTube, and then go check out Video Bros Network and PPW. It's like 3 subs, guys. 3 subs. You can do it. I know you can. Do it for us. But anyway, back to the conversation we were having. We're over to the province of Saskatchewan. I haven't even got to your neck of the woods here with Manitoba yet, Pop Smokes. But I want to mention too, Gold Dragon Wrestling. This was Jan Armstrong in the Moose Jaw area. I did have a couple of conversations with this guy at one point in time. Kind of was going to go start checking out what they were putting on. I was going to head out to Moose Jaw and stuff there. I didn't end up making the way and never really ended up in full contact with him, but did have some good conversations with Janet at one point in time too. He had met up with one of my buddies there when he was in the hospital recovering from a leg injury that he had picked up. Started talking about his time in wrestling, and then my buddy said, "You got to talk to my friend Bobby. He's a big wrestling fan. This is the kind of guy you want to chat with." And yeah, great chat, great guy, and did a lot of great things. He was well known out there in Moose Jaw for the production he was doing.
Oh, interesting. And the fact that you bring up Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, one of the better names for a city in the entire world for sure, Moose Jaw. But yeah, don't forget promotion also started under some controversy and such, just in a business sense here, but was the Jumpin' Joe that we know now as Joey Vendetta started a company out of, there's a picture of him in there too. Started a company out of Moose Jaw for some years there with some success as well.
There we go. That's there right there, Jumpin' Joe or Joey Vendetta, Ringside Wrestling there. It is listed as Moose Jaw, but as of right now, they have been operating out of Regina, especially ever since HIW closing its doors. And the fact that, here at Prairie Pro Wrestling, we stick to Saskatoon. It seems to be a great agreement to, we'll take Saskatoon. You've got Regina covered. Let's not, have a pissing match or anything like that. Let's work together. It seems to be fantastic. What a great great thing that you could just have that kind of working relationship with people and do that kind of thing, and everyone can be successful.
Yeah, well, everyone agrees with that business model except Vince McMahon, I guess. So he didn't want to play with anybody else. So here we are up here huddled under our blankets, trading talent with the next city, just trying to keep the lights on. Yeah, I think everybody's doing good, but just on a local scale, you can't get any bigger than that.
Vince is like that kid that hasn't played with the toy that's been sitting on the floor in the same spot for 5 damn days. And the second you try to take it away from him, he goes, "No, it's my toy."
For sure.
That is the McMahon way. Now, yeah, of course, it's also mentioned in here about Prairie Pro Wrestling briefly in Vance Nevada's book. So thank you, Vance, for throwing it out there. The Prairie Pro Wrestling, the upstart company, a lot of the HIW talent did come over and work for us, especially in the beginning. It is definitely changed quite a bit. Not to say that there isn't still some of the faces that we worked with in high impact wrestling, but PPW has unfolded into so much more. We've seen the rise of some of the talent out of the PPW Academy. I can't wait for that PPW Academy match to be able to be released here for you guys so you can really see what we got going on there. But just in general, like, we are seeing a whole different thing. At first, I think people, it was clear this was the continuation of what HIW was doing in the Saskatoon area at the very start. Outside of, like, we saw a few new faces again with the food truck wars there. We ended up seeing the vampire, Gabriel Lestat. We saw Zoe Seger come in at that point in time as well, too. So a couple of new faces there. They weren't the only ones, too, either, were they? There, who else did we have right off the hop there? Papa Smokes. Just trying to remember.
Yeah, there were a couple of new people that started then, and we just wanted to give it a...
Mitch Clark. Mitch Clark. That was the other one.
Yes,
Mitch had not made his way to Saskatoon, even though originally from here. Danger Zone Mitch Clark debuted in Saskatoon at Prairie Pro Wrestling at the Food Truck Wars.
That was a big debut too, but yeah. HIW had a good thing going for a long time, but the fans wanted wrestling back in this city, first of all. But I think they wanted a new look. They wanted something a little bit new. They wanted to see their favorites, but they wanted things jazzed up a little bit, such as a new ring and a nice entrance, and some of the things that HIW had cut costs on, PPW have taken to the front and tightened up and made to look good. And yeah, I think it was just the whole genesis of the company was just wanting to provide professional wrestling to the great fans here in Saskatoon. And man, can you remember that the food truck wars, and then the very first show we did at Cosmo Hall there, where the fans hadn't had a live show in Saskatoon in over a year, and they were just slavering, just drooling to get in there and see their favorites and do their yelling and their cheering and all that. And man, it's been as crazy as that ever since.
But some of their favorites had a whole new facelift entirely. As we're saying hello to Darnell Anglais. Darnell, you've been coming out, kicking ass, and showing up at all our shows. Thank you very much for the support. Really do appreciate it. Appreciate you coming out here on a Thursday night, joining us for Ring Respect Radio. If I haven't done so before, just so you're familiar, Bobby Munson, Papa Smokes right there. We are the team behind the cameras and the commentary team for local Saskatoon Canadian promotion, Prairie Pro Wrestling, and also previous to that, High Impact Wrestling as well, too. And you can catch us on various shows here at our local establishment, the Video Bros Network. We're very active in this. But yes, you are very welcome, Darnell. It's great to see you showing the support to all the shows here at our local establishment. It's because of people like you and Brian Carter, Basser, everybody that comes out every single time to these shows, that we're able to keep doing them and keep supporting and wanted to pump this material out. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. But yeah, Papa Smokes, as you were saying, that things unfolded with Prairie Pro and over time, just, due to availability and stuff like that, we've had to reach out and bring new people in, or people have moved on to some great opportunities and had to step out. And suddenly we got to bring new faces in. And man, the PPW Nation, they love a new face. They really do. They really love to see new faces come out. We had Jared Rogers come out of nowhere last time at Prairie Pro Wrestling. Nobody knew who he was. They did not care. There was Jared Rogers chants going on throughout that entire match. they love Jared Rogers. Why? Because they love professional wrestling here in Saskatoon.
Yeah, we have great fans and they will support. And that's the beautiful thing of it. We had Jared Rogers, and then we had some relatively new faces from Prairie Pro Wrestling Academy, including Riley Shack and the other guy whose name slips my mind right now, but did a great job in their match. You remember we talked about this last time, and the slap that guy gave Riley Shack was just sounded like a goddamn gunshot throughout the building. And man, that match was on after that. And the guys they're just starting out. This is some of their first stuff in front of people. It's nerve-wracking. You and I have seen Riley pacing around before the shows. He gets nervous and he gets out there and he's awesome. He looks at home in the ring. It's so nice to see. And that's what's fun for our fans too, is they get to see homegrown talent in their city, trained by the wrestlers that they like to watch every month here in Saskatoon. And what a great story it is for them.
Yeah, you bet, man. And a couple of things. Of course, that name you're looking for is Morris Waltz. The devious Morris Waltz there is the name. And a lot of sinister evil going to be coming out of that young talent very soon. I'm sure of that. But Riley Shack, I know that it was brought up by Chris Parrish here in a conversation with you and I, that he should be the mayor of the Mosh Pit Nation. So I will officially say I passed that along to Riley's trainers and said that there is no getting out of it. Riley is officially the mayor of the Mosh Pit Nation. And I think we're going to rock and roll with Riley Shack as that mayor moving forward. I think we're going to something with that young man. He's going to be a whole bundle of fun. And he's got size behind him too. I think Riley is going to make a great wrestler for us.
Oh, and he keeps coming out to that classic 80s metal like that. We're going to have a mosh pit started in the crowd. Man, Munson, I might jump over the rail and get into some head banging and some moshing myself.
Papa Smokes will forget the camera's in hand. We're going to get a cool scene right in the middle of the mosh pit. But, that's for another time, another place, maybe June the 17th. So stay tuned for live wrestling action if you're in the Saskatoon, Saskatchewan area. But we're rolling on over to our final province that we're going to talk about here in Western Canada, the place where that man beside me originates from. We're talking Papa Smokes. And Papa Smokes, I'm not sure how many people you know out of the area, but we're going to show the picture of the man on the front right there. That guy is a guy by the name of Robbie Royce coming out of the Manitoba area. Where do you want to begin? I'm putting this over to you, Papa Smokes. This is your neck of the woods, my man. Tell the good people all about the province of Manitoba.
For sure. The wrestling story for the province of Manitoba is more centered in Winnipeg, which is the capital city there. There aren't very many other cities or towns of any size there. And so Winnipeg is where the whole scene is developed. And they had some, just like you read in the historical parts for all these cities and old territories, they had a scene going in the old days of catch wrestling and all that stuff. But as time went on and as pro wrestling developed, they started getting a local scene, and that was promoted by Al Tomko. He came out and did the shows. He had the Winnipeg territory for a while, and that's when he was promoting NWA. So he had I believe Harley Race in as champ. I think he had Jack Briscoe in as champ. A few other famous NWA champions from the past defended the title in Winnipeg. Very, very historic. But Tomko eventually lost his territory to we already talked about Vince McMahon Jr. taking over stuff, but back in the 80s, he wasn't the only big company. Vern Gagne and the AWA out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, started inching their way up into Manitoba and took Winnipeg as one of their cities and started doing the big shows there. Now, this is once a month house shows, which they would show occasionally a match from one of those house shows on the TV show that we got. So you would sometimes see some Winnipeg action on the show. Mostly they were tapings from Minneapolis, but at any rate, Vern was playing hardball also, and he had a deal where he would take local wrestlers to use as job guys on his cards, but if you worked for Vern, you didn't work for anybody else. They wanted that exclusivity. So that kind of drove Tomko out of Winnipeg, and Vern Gagne and the AWA had it for some years. I would say something like 1980 to maybe 1986 or 7. They ran Winnipeg and some other smaller cities in Manitoba, including Brandon and Dauphin and Portage La Prairie.
Sorry, just going to interrupt 1 second there, Papa Smokes, because we got a new friend joining in. It's In the Hot Seat podcast, coming in here with a cool cat emote. Thank you for joining us on a Thursday night. Really appreciate you stopping in, and I know that you show love and support to some of the other shows here at our local establishment. That doesn't go unnoticed. Really, really do appreciate you, and I hope that everybody also goes and checks out In the Hot Seat podcast as well, too, showing support and love to all of our friends. Sorry to have interrupted you there, Papa Smokes, but first the people, then the stories, and we're going right back to you.
Yeah, no problem, Munson. I'll get back on track here. And as Vern ran the AWA in the 80s in Winnipeg, only some smaller local promotions continued to thrive. You might recognize some of these promoters' names. Joey Aiello and Tony Condello were the two other promoters. And you would recognize some of the wrestlers that came up through their systems too, including Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, and the Golden Sheik was Omega's uncle. He's the guy that broke his nephew in. Kenny Omega had been a long time on the scene for a long time with Don Callis and a few other guys. Don Callis, as he was known back then, the Jackal, and by a few other names, but they kept it going.
Sorry, Lance Storm was another one that came out of that area too, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. I thought he was an Alberta guy too, but I'm quite sure he wrestled there.
Yeah, because he ended up he teamed with Jericho, and that's when they ended up over in Smoky Mountain Wrestling shortly after that.
Yeah, it was Cornette that brought them down to the States and then got them jobs with WWE, but. Yeah, at any rate, once Vern's show left town, well, first of all, the AWA brought a lot of fanfare to Winnipeg. Can you imagine if a major company had monthly shows in our city right now like it would be like AEW having a show here every single month and us getting the TV show every week kind of thing. Like, can you imagine that, seeing an actual world champion every week? We had, and this was in the 80s, so we had Bockwinkel and Heenan and Ventura and Hulk Hogan and the Road Warriors and God, so many famous people that came through there, all the stars of the AWA. So for me as a kid, that was a real treat. I didn't realize how good I had it at the time, I don't think, and I would never see anything like that again on that scale out in this part of Canada. But as I've told you many times, I like wrestling on a smaller scale now. I prefer indie wrestling if I can find the right promotions to watch. I kind of prefer the grassroots thing instead of massively high production value and graphics and explosions and all that kind of stuff. So I'm comfortable with the way it is now. But talking about Winnipeg anyway, since the 90s, kind of since AWA has been out of action, we've seen more indie promotions thrive there, including things like Danny Duggan's CWE and WPW Winnipeg Pro Wrestling, another company with a great reverence for the past and their social media profile like to bring up some of the famous wrestling matches that have happened in Winnipeg in decades past. Yeah,
just a great province that's produced and a lot of talent as well too, and done a lot of great things, and sometimes it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. Again, like you bring up the promotion over in Winnipeg there right now, they've been kicking some serious ass over there and doing really well. So all the kudos to everybody over there that's doing what they do and everything. And got to throw this. This came in earlier, but I got to No, Pop Smokes. Brian Carter wants to know what you just hitting on there.
Oh, it's just it's nothing exotic, just vape clouds. Just take a blast of it once in a while. Nothing too scandalous or anything. It's not it's not the active ingredient stuff. It's just something to puff on every once in a while.
No, that's absolutely fair. Just had to ask the questions there. Brian Carter's asking for sure. But
I'm not usually
good.
I'm not usually a vape man, but I could do this inside every so often, so we're good.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk a minute or two about it was brought up in this book is the death tours, as they were known in the Manitoba area, because you talked about the long distances of driving, and this was one of the companies there that would go on these tours and bring this to some of the different First Nations reserves that aren't reachable throughout the year until we get what are known as the ice roads. The ice roads are created when the deep colds come into Canada and they are able to make those passages over top. But of course, the weather, especially as you get further up north in those areas, can become extremely extreme. So a lot of the time, the guys would go on these tours and they'd be 2-week tours where they're supposed to be working every night to every other night. And they would come to a place and find out that it's been canceled because the weather is so severe. Nobody is allowed out. They've locked down the reserve. Nobody's allowed in. So you wouldn't get paid that night as well, too. So the death tours were very risky here in the Canadian scene.
For sure. And of course, we know a couple of people that have been on those, including Crash Crimson and a very young, at that time, El Assassino, who was just starting out in the business, being taken under Crimson's wing. And they've done that before. It's very grueling. If people don't know, driving in the subarctic conditions of up north in Canada is an extremely risky proposition. I mean, it's fine if you're moving and your vehicle is staying warm, but if you break down in any way, or if you start to lose that heat from the cab of the vehicle, you're in a serious situation, because there are not towns dotting the highways up there. You sometimes drive for 3 hours before there's another town, so they're dangerous, but that's the way a lot of wrestlers get their chops. You can work every night in a different city, and to a fan base that has never seen you before. I've seen some of those clips online of some of those matches up there, and it's just crowds of kids. They never get shows of any kind up there. They don't get music concerts. They don't get plays. They don't get orchestras. They don't get any of that stuff. So when wrestling comes to town, the whole town will come out and they go crazy. Have you ever seen some of those matches where the wrestlers walk out to the ring and they're just surrounded by a huge group of children, like 50 children, just floundering around them, just wanting to touch them, wanting to see them, wanting to get a close look at them? It's really something.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing to witness and everything like that. I don't know how anybody would want to make that risk. I mean, obviously it's for the love of what you're doing, and then wanting to be able to bring it to people who, most of the time we talk about us not getting things here in Saskatchewan. Sometimes when you get into some of those northern areas, especially in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, everything like that, they get nothing, like absolutely nothing. So the fact that anything can come out their way and give them that kind of entertainment for even just one night, it is a massively huge thing. Again, and Brian Carter, did Pop Smokes just plug El Assassino again? Colton Kelly is going to come after him. If you not caught on, Brian, you got to have a close look. That El Assassino wears his Papa Smoke shirt proudly down to the ring every single damn night that he comes out for us. So I've been asking these questions for a long ass time myself, all about the Papa Smokes El Assassino connection.
And I've been avoiding them for a long time too, and only giving you what you need to know, Munson. But Assassino and I are like this. We have a mutual respect and a mutual like for each other. And I don't know how much he trusts me, or I don't know how much I trust him. We're not going to get into that right now, but we have a mutual admiration for sure.
Well, I can't say that I have the exact same thing with myself and El Asesino. Might have been some differences of opinion over the years, so I might be a little bit more worried when I see him walking down ringside, looking at my camera there every once in a while. Pop Smokes.
Well, you were poking him basically with a pointed stick for years, taking jabs at him all the time, and then when him and Dice Steele got you in the ring, I just about blew my lid. I thought they were going to kick the shit out of you, Munson. And I was going to watch that and laugh. But you just barely made it out of there.
And can you believe it? One of my saviors at the time was wrestling's smartest man, Bucky McGraw.
I'm not sure if that was a smart thing he did that day, but you benefited from that, Munson. You had poked the bear many times, and when the bear came calling, you just slipped out of there with your life.
That's right. And you know what? I'll always remember the fact that Bucky came to my aid that night. So no matter how much the fans might despise Bucky McGraw, if that hand ever came my way, you never know. I might be tempted. But again, everything that you guys have heard from us tonight, some of it is just our passion for the scene and stuff like that. But a lot of the actual facts, the truth, is coming right out of this book right here, Uncontrolled Chaos, from Mr. Beefy Goodness Vance Nevada. You can get this thing on Amazon. Everybody, there's about 1,000 or more pictures of pro wrestlers that have a copy of this book, that have read it. This has been read on various podcasts. Vance Nevada has absolutely killed it with this thing. I believe he's got something else in the works right now too, man. This guy has found his niche outside of professional wrestling as he hangs up his boots. Again, another guy that, we didn't mention him here outside of the book, but a guy who spent many years in the Canadian provinces doing tons for the scene. And now he's done so much more, because not only has he documented the Canadian provinces in the West, he's done it for the entire country. Everything right up to the territory, and I see territories not like wrestling territories, but the territories here in Canada, not the provinces. We do have 3 of them now. Would have been 2 probably back when some of the promotions ran, or some of the tours would have happened. But it's just an awesome read. If you guys like pro wrestling, there's a lot of names you're going to recognize in this book, and just support Vance Nevada. I think he's done excellent here, Pop Smokes.
Yeah, I second that completely. And just as a brief overview, his book is very finely constructed. It's written in an academic and historical manner, with all the sources are there if you want to look up anything further, if you want to fact check something. He's done an incredible job with research in this. And I would say that not only is it a nice, big, beautiful hardcover coffee table book, which is nice to just look at and look at the pictures, but it can be an important historical tool for future writers and future wrestling historians to look at this book and at least have a basic overview of what's happened in every province in Canada in wrestling. And from there, if it doesn't go into enough detail for the future historians, it's a starting point and a jumping point for where they can do their research. So what an incredible tool for the wrestling historian.
Yeah, it really is. And it's been a great tool to help us put out this very special episode of Ring Respect Radio here for you guys. Let us know if you're watching the replay of this, what you thought in the comments, what you'd like to see more of here on Ring Respect Radio. We do like to bring you guys a plethora of different things here, try different things. That's why we wanted to, focus a little bit on a section of this book here for you guys. We could do more book reviews, of course, over time. We also should probably do a little bit more talking about some of the indie promotions that we've been getting ourselves into. But one cool thing, and we'll mention it again, we talked about it heavily recently, Pop Smokes, MLW is coming back in many big ways. Even today, announcing that Fusion making a way back to BN Sports. That's going to be starting up here at the end of May. So Fusion coming back, and then the live shows. I am so friggin' pumped for live MLW as it's going down. We're going to be watching that on Fight Plus. You and I am doing a watch along or whatever we choose to do, recap thing here on the channel. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up on July 8th as the leader of the Bull My 8 Fight Club finally gets his crack, Alexander Hammerstone, for that MLW World Heavyweight Championship.
Totally pumped for that, Munson, that they're building that as their next big championship match. the biggest one since Hammerstone Fatu Part 2. We got some new blood coming into this title scene in MLW, and it's our man, Alex Kane, one of our friends that we've interviewed on here, and one of the top stars and top heels in MLW. This guy's got a legitimate chance at dethroning the very strong champion that Alexander Hammerstone has been all this time. I think if anyone can get the job done in MLW right now, it just might be Alex Kane.
I think you might be onto something there, Papa Smokes. Couldn't disagree with you at all, too. And look at this. All of a sudden, we got another new friend in the chat. We got Brokish coming in to the chat for the very first time, I believe. What's this all about? Well, let me tell you, my friend, because you're here for the very first time. This is your first time here at our local establishment. My name is Bobby Munson. The man beside me is the man with the angelic voice. He is Papa Smokes. The two of us are known as the Video Bros. We do this show each and every Thursday night. We are the commentary team over at Prairie Pro Wrestling. We also do the video work over there as well, too, putting it together, putting the shows out so you get matches on YouTube. It is a Western Canadian promotion here that we've been doing in the Saskatoon area for quite some time. But it's all about wrestling. Well, if you love wrestling, it's all about wrestling. You bet, man. We got a lot of great wrestling content here on the channel. A lot of people that do a lot of wrestling reviews and stuff like that here. We got the Monday Night Raw watch along on Mondays with Carl Carafel and friends. Turnbuckle Talk on Tuesday nights as well with Carl and a panel of great guests he's got on there. Carl being a former retired professional wrestler himself, turned podcaster, and then on Tuesday nights as well too, Ed Fries and Astrid Pizarro that do the NXT review for us, and then Pop Smokes and I here, and then Chris Parrish, another retired professional wrestler, and myself have Busting Out on Sundays, where we have guests and all sorts of people talking about the week in professional wrestling. Glad that you're here, glad that you love it. I know one guy, Dwayne, and the San Johnsons. Oh man, you're gonna be a fun person on stream. I'm glad you showed up here, Brokish. We are kind of coming to the very, very end of this particular stream, but I do want to say that we thank you for coming out and joining us. And we do hope that because we do have the content you want to enjoy and love, that you'll definitely check this show out next Thursday night and also check out some of the more of the great programs that we have here at our local establishment. Papa Smokes, in the meantime and in between time, my friend, why don't you let people know where they can get a hold of Papa Smokes?
Let's do it, Munson. I live in Elon Musk's free speech wonderland known as Twitter. I'm at smokes_papa. And you can also reach out to me at Twitch at papa_smokes_.
There you go. If you're checking out the ticker down below, you're going to be able to find me at all sorts of places. You can reach out to me with any of your conversation about wrestling talk or anything related to the other shows here on our local establishment. If you're wanting to get a hold of us here at our local establishment, right down below is all of our social media information, including Twitch and YouTube, where we appreciate a like, follow, subscribe, all those wonderful things that you can do for us. If you want to reach out to us, let us know what you thought of a show. Comment section is welcome. Emails open all the time as well too. Or maybe you want to guest with us. Hey, reach out. You might be able to guest on one of the shows coming up here from OLE. That's going to be it. You're going to be able to catch me tomorrow night about 6 p.m. Eastern time. It is a pre-recorded show. It is the latest review for myself and Astrid Pizarro on Killer Cuts Chapter 3. And then, of course, on Saturday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Boar's Nest is going to be doing a very special gaming stream here on the channel. So Bubba Duke and OMD going to be rocking and rolling with some Redfall gameplay on Saturday night. Maybe a few other people will jump in there that night with them. Of course, then Sunday, myself and Chris Parrish being joined by professional wrestler Bougie busting out. But Papa Smokes, that's going to be it for this episode of Ring Respect Radio. We thank everybody who took the time to hang out with us, party with us on a Thursday night. And until next Thursday, take care, everybody.